This is Attorney Martin Nicholson from the Law Office of Martin Nicholson, also known as the Battery Man, for my focus on criminal battery cases. Now, I want to talk about the case finally wrapping up of Sean Puff Daddy P. Diddy Combs. Now, the prosecution has rested their case. The defense, in what I think is a stunning move of this ping pong I thought was going to be back and forth, rested in about 30 minutes. And Puff Daddy himself did not testify. Diddy didn't testify. What does that mean? Well, if you watch Pam Entertainment TV on May 31st, I was on her show and I predicted that he would not testify. What I did not anticipate is they would not call any witnesses. Now, the clock is ticking down on jury deliberations. They're going to start tomorrow, Thursday. And then that's when things really get intense because the jury will then have it in their hands. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of this surprising moves in this case. So, the big question people have is, why didn't he testify? Well, as a defense attorney, has tried a lot of cases. We always discuss at length with our client about whether to testify or not testify. It's a common defense strategy that if you think that the prosecution did not prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt, there's no need to put your client to testify. I like being in control of a case. So if you put a witness up there, whether it's your client or someone else, then guess what? If they slip up and say something, or they don't sound believable, or they get nervous, and jurors misread that, thinking that means that they're guilty or they're trying to hide something, it hurts your case. So there's various reasons why someone may not testify. Now, in Puff Daddy's case, we don't really know the reason why he didn't testify, but I have some reasons that I'll get into a little bit later. Another interesting move is the prosecution end up dropping charges. Yes, they end up dropping charges. They end up dropping the charge of like kidnapping and arson, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Now, it was almost 7 weeks of testimony of this trial. The prosecution, the government, called over 30 witnesses. And we heard from witnesses like Cassie, Jane Doe, Danity Kane, Dawn Richard, even Kid Cudi. The prosecution really focused, I believe, they really focused on evidence from these alleged freak-offs, these sex parties. They presented video footage recently, text messages, financial records, and they painted this picture of P. Diddy, kind of in his team, the SEAL Team 16, actively organizing these events. Well, like I said, here's where it gets interesting, right? The defense rested their case in under half an hour, calling zero witnesses. They did do is they had their argument center around some romantic text between Diddy and Cassie, trying to counter this abuse allegation. But the lack of witnesses is a bold move, and it suggests that they believe the prosecution hasn't met its burden, as I said earlier, or they believe that any witness that is going to testify is going to basically help the prosecution, that there's no witnesses. I think that was a stunning, bold move, and ultimately could lead to his conviction. You have all these witnesses that are getting there saying all this damaging stuff about Puff Daddy, but you can't have one person, not one person, come forward and speak on your behalf. And you're like a billionaire. No employee's going to come forward and say, no, that wasn't him. That's not what I saw. Nothing. No associate. So that, I think, as a juror, at least as an outsider, I think that shows that the prosecution's case was probably made. Now, like I said, the prosecutors have dropped some of the charges, some of the racketeering theories. They're no longer pursuing these allegations of attempted kidnapping and arson related to the alleged break-in of Kid Cudi's home. And this is likely a strategic move by the federal government to streamline the case for the jury to focus on what they think is the most serious evidence related to sex trafficking. And also, if this is the most serious accusation, it lets it forces the jury that they can't find him guilty of these minor charges. We want you to find him guilty of this. So it's kind of like almost like all or nothing. Or if they think this is petty, it's like, man, let's just drop these. And I did think some of the charges that the government did was, those are overcharging. Now, right before closing argument, the lawyers and the judge, they have to hash out jury instructions, and which are crucial. Jury instructions are really crucial because that's what instructs the jurors what the law is, and that's what they look at and they read before they can come back with a verdict. And they tell the jury how to interpret the law and apply it to the facts in this case. Now, there was even a disagreement about whether the prosecution needed to prove a completed commercial sex act for there to be sex trafficking conviction. And the judge seemed to lean towards the prosecution's argument that it wasn't always necessary for there to be a completed sexual act. The defense, they requested and was granted an extra night to prepare for their closing argument, which is great because, you close, this is it, your last time to talk to the jury. Sometimes you want to have that extra night to prepare, go through all the prosecution's information. So now, obviously, the prosecution may have not been happy about that, but they're going to benefit from that extra night as well. Now, the outcome is far from certain, and the stakes are incredibly high for Diddy. But I think at the end of the day, with the remaining counts, the fact that he did not testify and the instructor not to hold that against him, and he called 0 witnesses, and basically the jury is left with all this painting, horrible picture. I think he's going to wind up with a guilty. Now, I don't think that this should have been a federal case. I think this is more from the video of a case of domestic violence, of a man that is jealous of some women. That's what it appears to be from the video and what the state put out there. And like he's wealthy. So what some of my clients who are not as wealthy may do, hitting their spouse, and that's it. He has the ability to say, I'm going to hit you, I'm going to follow you, or I'm going to have one of my friends follow you, or something like. He just has more wealth to kind of do some of the domestic violence control, insecure activities that he's alleged to have committed. Now, obviously, you've seen the video, and the video of him, dragging her, Casey, and hitting her. So there is that. So, what's your opinion? Do you think he's going to be found guilty, not guilty? Go ahead and leave a comment. What do you think about him not testifying? The defense not calling any witnesses? I mean, what do you think about that? So, that's your Nicholson Nugget of the day. Please be sure to like and subscribe.